on biocomposites. She has published 5 papers in international journals and 4 papers in international conferences. She received Zonta Amelia Fellowship for the year 2016, awarded for 35 aerospace women engineers throughout the world. Welcome, Dr. Deepa, for the session.
Thank you, Radhika, for the very good introduction. So it's very long. Anyway, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you one and all for being here for the presentation. And quite few of you might know me because I'm the student of Vignan Institute of Technology and Science, as I have done masters over there. And it's good to see you all after a long time. So today I'm going to present on fabrication and characterization of force-spun polycaprolactone microfibers infused with bio-based hydroxyapatite. So this is one of the projects which I have undertaken under CREST grant, which is funded by National Science Foundation, NSF. So before going into the experimentation methods, let's briefly discuss about the polymer nanofibers. Why do we discuss about polymer nanofibers? As we all know that the polymer nanofibers have made their way into the materials field and modernized the application of nanomaterials with their unique features and vast variety of applications. Here we are saying nanofibers. What do we mean by nanofibers? Nanofibers are defined as the fibers that has dimensions less than 100 nanometers. Here is a representative of the various materials varying from few microns to nanometers. As we can see to the left, the carbon nanotubes are less than 1 nanometer, and to the right, if we see, that is a human hair, and we know it is at least approximately 80 microns or 80,000 nanometers. So these nanofibers fall within the range of few micrometers to few nanometers depending on the applications. So that is like we define according to our convenience based on the application we use. So we are talking about polymer nanofibers and what are nanofibers and why do we talk about these nanofibers? What makes them so special? Coming to the properties of the nanofibers, as we are calling them as nanofibers, and as the name indicates, nano means a small size. So the structure of these fibers and the characteristics of these fibers cannot be seen with the naked eye. So they have to be characterized using special equipment like scanning electron microscopy or transmission electron microscopy or special equipment because like they cannot be seen under naked eye. Furthermore, they have large surface area to volume ratio. And we must remember that when the particles come down from macro scale to nanoscale, surface area to volume ratio increases. With a small size and high surface area to volume ratio, when these nanofibers are applied, this speeds up the process of the chemical reaction in that particular application. And also these nanofibers exhibit unique physical, chemical, mechanical, electrical, optical, and biological properties. So these properties are unique when compared to that of the macro scale. So that is the reason like why we consider the nanofibers in vast and wide variety of applications. I'm repeating again and again wide variety of applications because like there are huge number of applications based on these nanofibers, which we discuss here. So I have given a brief overview of the application of the nanofibers here. These nanofibers are particularly used in wide variety of applications as I'm repeating. So one of the most important applications is like biomedical application. Particularly in the biomedical applications, these nanofibers are used as for drug delivery methods. For example, like the powder or the medicine is encapsulated with these nanofiber shades. And particularly for wound dressing, sutures, scaffolds, tissue engineering, bone implants, dental implants, and all kinds of implant materials. because these nanofibers exhibit porous structure and also they support for the cell proliferation and cell growth. And another major application of these nanofibers is like ultrafiltration. So ultrafiltration is like used in air filtration, water filtration, fuel filtration, oil filtration. Wherever the micro level filtration is needed, we apply the nanomaterials over there. I have a small example of this here. This is the air filtration one, like which we use for air conditioning system to filter the dust particles or something like that. So as we can see, this is like a nanofiber sheet made of the nanofibers with a random orientation. And also like the portable water filters, like which we use in our everyday life, they also consider these nanofiber mats. So this is one of the major application of nanofibers. And along with this, another important application of the nanofibers is in automotive and aerospace industry. Because like this, nanofibers are nowadays, like they were used along with a wide variety of parts. And it was proved that when we apply the nanofiber sheets to the parts of the automotive or the aerospace parts, it absorbs sound and then it results in the less noise. So noise reduction happens with the nanofiber mats. Along with that, it has its own application in the textile industry, like protective clothing, protective gear, windproof, water resistant and breathable, antimicrobial, antibacterial. Based on several applications, it has its own applications in the textile industry, and also like energy generation for solar cells, fuel cells, polymer cells, capacitors, energy generation and storage devices. And also like the protective materials based on thermal, biological, chemical, and magnetic materials. So it has its own wide range and vast variety of applications. Particularly in this project, we focus on the biomedical application. So we test for the thermal, mechanical, and the biological properties of the developed nanofibers. So based on this wide variety of applications, one of the main part of the CREST project is to develop the polymer nanofibers through force spinning. So the objective has become the spin the nanofiber mats for applications such as sutures, wound care, and scaffolds using force spinning method. Why I'm calling force spinning? What do you mean by force spinning here? In general, polymer nanofibers are produced using various methods like melt spinning, phase separation, template synthesis, and electrospinning. Among all this, electrospinning is the most common method to generate polymer nanofibers. And this is flexible, and recently like much advancements have been made in the electrospinning methods. However, this electrospinning method has its own limitations because it uses high electric voltages to generate the polymer nanofibers. So as a result, it imposes some constraint on the polymer solutions, which has dielectric constants. So we cannot use the electrospinning method for conductive solutions as generously as we can use other methods. So one of the alternatives for this electrospinning method is like force spinning method. In the force spinning method, we use centrifugal force to generate the polymer nanofibers, and hence no electric fields are needed. As a result, the restrictions imposed on the materials with low dielectric constants are removed, and hence we can spin conductive as well as non-conductive solutions, polymer solutions. Also, like in the force spinning method, we can do both solutions and melts. I mean, like we can spin the fibers using melt spinning, as well as like we can spin the fibers from the polymer solutions. Here is the schematic of the force spinning method. So as you can see here, this is the spinneret. So this spinneret will be equipped with two needles. The needles can be of any size depending on the gauge. We use like 28, 24 depending on the size of the fibers we need. And these are the collector plates. So we infuse the polymer solution. This is particularly, this equipment is for solution, polymer solution. solution-based spinning, not for melt spinning. Melt spinning has a different setup even in the force spinning equipment. So polymer solution is infused in this spinneret, and this spinneret will rotate with a particular angular velocity, which we give. And when this spinneret rotates, centrifugal force shows up, and then that results in the ejection of the polymer solution, which travels in a spiral direction, and this polymer jet will get deposited on these collector plates, and finally that will get solidified and the fibrous mats are collected. So here, in order to generate these polymer nanofibers, air friction force, centrifugal force, and the viscoelastic force plays an important role. So although air friction force can be neglected for this, like it's a very small amount, centrifugal force plays a very important role in this. And because of the centrifugal force, the polymer nanofibers are generated when the spinneret rotates with particular angular velocity. So for this particular force spinning method, in order to get the fibers with the desirable characteristics, we need to pay attention to some of the factors which can modify and alter the characteristics and the structural properties of the fibers which we get. So some of these properties include spinneret angular velocity. Suppose if the spinneret rotates with a high speed, the polymer solution will get deposited on the collector plates and it will not get solidified before it reaches the collector plate. So the crystallinity of the fibers decreases and the properties of the fiber deteriorates because it will cause the molecular defects in the nanofibers. So we should pay attention to the spinneret angular velocity. And also if it is so slow or the angular velocity is very less, the fibers will not get generated because like it will not have enough rotational forces to generate the fibers. So we should pay attention to the spinneret angular velocity while we use force spinning of the nanofibers. Orifice radius. This is one of the important factors that affects the diameter of the fiber. So if orifice radius is high, we get the fibers with a larger diameter. If orifice radius is less, we get the fibers with a lower diameter. Viscosity of the solution. This also plays a very important role because like the solution is too viscous. The viscous forces will dominate the centrifugal force and the solution will not be flown freely inside the spinneret and it will not come out through the needle and generate the fibers. So the viscosity of the solution should be within the range in such a way that it compensates the centrifugal force and the centrifugal force can generate the nanofibers. And the surface tension also plays an important role. And coming to the evaporation rate, we are spinning fibers from the polymer solutions here. That means we are mixing polymer with some kind of solvent. So the solvent evaporation rate plays an important role. Suppose if the solvent dries too quickly or the solvent evaporates too quickly, the polymer solidifies before reaching the collector plate and it will not be deposited properly on the collector plates. If the solvent evaporation rate is less, it may cause beads while forming the fibers. So we should pay attention like what amount of solution we are using and what amount of weight percentage of solvent or the material we are using and what kind of solvent we are using. And for example, like if we use two different kinds of solvents, it might increase the porosity of the fibers. If we use single solvent, it might it might decrease the porosity of the fibers. So based on the application we need, we have to pay. So distance of the spinneret to the orifice collector also plays an important role in varying the characteristics of the polymer nanofibers. So these all factors are to be considered while generating the fibers through the force spinning method. And so based on this force spinning of the nanofibers, we intend to develop the polymer nanofibers with a bio-based hydroxyapatite. That means like we are trying to develop bio-based polymer nanofibers. Why do we need bio-based polymer nanofibers? We can go with polymer nanofibers because they are easily available. commercially. However, like with a daily increase in the rising concerns for the environmental impacts and the shrinkage of the petroleum resources, we need to pay attention to the resources available for us to lessen the environmental impacts. So one of the alternative method is like bio-based or the sustainable polymer composites, which has like a huge demand nowadays because of the reduction of the environmental impact. They help in reducing the pollution. They help in converting the waste to the resourceful material. So these two factors play an important role, and that is the reason why we choose bio-based polymer nanofibers here. So some of the advantages are listed here. One thing is like less environmental impact, as we all know. Along with that, these are derived from the natural resources, and particularly bio waste. Not like we are using, we are buying something and generating or synthesizing the bio-based polymers. However, like we are using the bio waste and we are converting them into a resource. This has increased biodegradability and high availability, and they are available at the cheaper rate compared to the commercially available fibers. So a few examples are listed here. From the crab shells, chitin, chitosan, they have been synthesized from the exoskeletons of the crustaceans. And from the eggshells, hydroxyapatite has been synthesized, and calcium carbonate. Also, the protein material from the eggshells have been used in the biodegradable polymers, agro-based fertilizers. And another example is like packaging waste, which is converted to the activated carbon development of the carbon nanotubes from that. In coffee ground, the waste coffee ground, the coconut shell powder, banana fibers, like what all the waste materials we are nowadays, the researchers are trying to find out what is a huge massive waste and what we can do to convert them into a resourceful material. So a lot of research is going on this bio-based materials. So hence we choose to develop bio-based polymer nanofibers as a part of the QUEST project. So for this project, we have chosen 3 materials. One is powdered caprolactone, which is purchased from Polysciences, Warrington, Philadelphia, USA. The polycaprolactone is a biodegradable polymer which is used in widely used in the biomedical applications for sutures and wound dressing. So it has good biocompatibility and also good thermal stability. So that is the reason why we choose the polycaprolactone. And we choose chloroform as the solvent here. And coming to the hydroxyapatite, I said bio-based hydroxyapatite. So this project also includes the synthesis of the hydroxyapatite from the bio-waste. So we consider the carpa fish scales, which is a massive bio-waste, and particularly in India, like that is a massive bio-waste. So I obtained this carpa fish scales from Nizona INC, located in Mumbai, India. And so we extract hydroxyapatite from that. Which hydroxyapatite is a non-toxic, non-inflammatory, and non-immunogenic material which is used in the biomedical applications, particularly for the dental implants and the bone implants, because it promotes it has like osteoconductivity property, a special osteoconductivity property, and also similar to the structure of the human bone. So because of that, hydroxyapatite is widely used in the biomedical applications. So these are the 3 basic materials we chose for the present project. And coming to the experimentation methods, we characterize the nanoparticles and the polymer nanofibers using SEM, and we characterize the nanoparticles using XRD, X-ray diffraction spectrometry, scanning electron microscopy, and a transmission electron microscopy. And also like we perform thermal and tensile tests. Thermal tests are done using DRC, and mechanical testing is done using tensile and the DME. We are doing like biological testing also to check the antimicrobial activity and cell growth on these polymer nanofibers. However, that is in process, so I was not able to show that results here. First, let's discuss about the synthesis of the nanoparticles from the bio waste. So coming to the synthesis of the nanoparticles, we consider the fish scales, the Karpa fish scales, or in particular, I can say that they are the Rohu and Katla fish collected from the Rohu and Katla fish species, which belong to the Karpa fish. So they were sun-dried and the moisture content is 70% before obtaining them. So these raw fish scales are calcinated. I mean, like they are burnt in the box furnace at about 800 degrees centigrade for 3 hours. This is because like we just did a rough thermogravimetric analysis on these fish scales. Because raw fish scales contain like a lot of collagen, carbon content, and then proteins, lipids, fats, and a lot of other materials. So this that is the reason like we choose to do a rough thermogravimetric analysis, which shows the decomposition, and we figured out that around 700 to 750 degrees centigrade, the hydroxyapatite was left, and before that everything would be decomposed. So we chose to calcinate it around 800 degrees centigrade, and we calcinated for 3 hours. So after getting the burnt fish scales, that was hand ground using the mortar and pestle. So those were like macromolecules, not even micro, they were like macromolecules. And these macromolecules were sent to the compact nano agitator bead mill, which is shown here. So this is a bead mill which has a filter or the pore size of less than 0.3 millimeters. Inside this, we use small zirconia balls of size varying from 0.3 to 1.4 millimeters. So let's say like for 3 grams of burnt fish scales, I use 7 grams of zirconia balls. So we should use 7 to 3 ratio of the zirconia balls to the material. That way, like it would be ground into a fine powder or the nanoparticles. And this is like a solvent based or the solution based nano bead mill. So I use distilled water to cool down the temperature, and using the distilled water, the macro particles of these fish scales were sent into this nano agitator bead mill, and that was milled for 1 hour. So after milling for 1 hour, we collect the nanoparticles of the hydroxyapatite along with the distilled water, and then we centrifuge it to separate the nanohydroxyapatite and water. So the collected nanohydroxyapatite is dried and then again ground using the mortar and pestle, and then we get the nanoparticles of the hydroxyapatite. So this is like how we synthesize the nanoparticles for the hydroxyapatite. And in order to confirm this size, we further characterize this nanohydroxyapatite particles. So here we discuss about the characterization of the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles. These are the scanning electron microscopy or micrographs of the synthesized hydroxyapatite. So this is at a magnification factor of 300. And this is at a magnification factor of 15,000. Hydroxyapatite particles easily agglomerate. So we can see the agglomeration here. And also they are like kind of porous structure. And this is like 35,000 magnification factor, and this is like 60,000 magnification factor. So we can see that the scale is like 100 nanometers. So this size is definitely less than the nanoscale. Along with this, we perform the EDS spectrum for the hydroxyapatite. So we choose to check the chemical composition of the hydroxyapatite. So as we see, the chemical formula for the hydroxyapatite is CH10PO46OH2. So OH2. So we do the elemental composition and the chemical composition of the for the hydroxyapatite particle. So this is the elemental composition. It shows carbon. I have chosen to show only carbon, oxygen, calcium, and phosphorus, which are the major elements. So this is shown here, and we can see definitely that the synthesized nano hydroxyapatite particles has all the chemical composition that was defined as in the chemical formula for the hydroxyapatite. Also, the mass percent and atom percent were recorded here. So the calcium by phosphorus ratio is 1.312. For the commercial hydroxyapatite which we obtain, the calcium to phosphorus ratio is 1.56 to 1.6. So calcium to phosphorus ratio for is 1.3 for the bio-based hydroxyapatite, which is not bad. And this can be definitely used for the biomedical applications. And further, we choose to characterize these nanoparticles using the transmission electron microscopy to check the scale of the particles. So this is at a 0.5 micrometer range, and this is 50 nanometer range. And even here, we can see the agglomeration of the particles. And further, we chose to go down to 20 nanometers. I wanted to see the shape of these nanoparticles, so we went down to that scale, 20 nanometers. So the particles are still in irregular shape because like it went through the nanomill and then we ground it by hand, like using the mortar and pestle. However, for under 20 nanometer scale, we can see slightly the hexagonal planes for these hydroxyapatite particles. And then further, we characterized using the X-ray diffraction spectrometry. So for this, like here, I chose to show the raw fish scales, which is the bottom one. As discussed earlier, the raw fish scales has carbon content, then proteins, fats, lipids, collagen, and many other particles along with the hydroxyapatite. So the hydroxyapatite peaks were not shown clearly for the raw fish scales because it includes all the other materials too. But when the fish scales were calcinated at 800 degrees centigrade, the hydroxyapatite shows up. And when it is nanomilled for 1 hour, this was like more clear, and then it was like more intensive. The peaks were like more clear. And if we see, I chose to show two planes here. I recorded two plane angles and this spacing here. So JCPDF file is the available commercial hydroxyapatite, the standard one, which is available for the XRD. So the angle is like at around 25.866, and the peak for the nanomill fish scale was found at 25.862, which is very close. Also, the d-spacing is also like almost similar. It's 0.34 and it's around 0.35. Even for the 211 plane, the angle is like 31.764 for the standard one and 31.768 for the nanomilled fish scale. And the spacing is like 0.28, and the one which we got has also 0.28. So the synthesized hydroxyapatite particles, based on this, we can say that this can be used as for the commercial applications or for the biomedical applications. So now like we got the hydroxyapatite, and then we characterized and we confirmed that it can be used for the biomedical applications or for the commercial applications. And then we proceed with the development of the polymer nanofibers by infusing this by a bio-based hydroxyapatite into the polycaprolactone solution. So now coming to the development of the polymer fibers. First, we chose like polycaprolactone and chloroform. We mix them together. Polycaprolactone is considered as 16 weight percent. That means like for 100 grams of solution, we choose like 16 grams of polycaprolactone and 84 grams of chloroform, which together makes 100 grams of solution. And that we mix them together, and then we mix it through the magnetic stirring. So I chose like 170 RPM, and this is a magnet here, which is a white thing. So that was like magnetic stirring was done for 3 hours at 170 RPM. That way, like the polycaprolactone powder will be dissolved in the chloroform completely. And after that, we infuse the nanoparticles into this solution. So I choose like 3 weight percentages: 1 weight percent of hydroxyapatite, 2 weight percent of hydroxyapatite, and 3 weight percent of hydroxyapatite. So these are 3 samples. So I chose through 3 different weight percentages for the nanoparticles. So I infuse those nanoparticles in the solution. 1 weight percentage means like for 100 grams of polycaprolactone, we consider 1 gram of hydroxyapatite. So that is 1 weight percent. 2 weight percent means 100 grams of polycaprolactone, we choose 2 grams of hydroxyapatite. So for the polycaprolactone considered here, we choose like 1, 2, 3 weight percentages of hydroxyapatite. When we infuse the nanoparticles, these nanoparticles will not be easily dissolved using the magnetic stirring. So these nanoparticles have to be mixed separately. And for that, we use a Tinky mixer. This is a planetary mixer which mixes under vacuum. So it goes up to 2000 RPM. So I chose like 1900 RPM, and I used it for 7 minutes to mix these nanoparticles. If we choose like for longer time, these particles, nanoparticles get agglomerated because the hydroxyapatite particles easily agglomerate. So that is the reason we chose like 7 minutes for planetary mixing. So once we mix the nanoparticles with a polymer solution, this polymer solution is infused into the spinneret. Like approximately 2 to 3 ml of solution will go into this spinneret. And I use 24 gauge needle here because like we are using the nanoparticles. If I use the smaller gauge needles, these nanoparticles block the needle and the fibers are not being generated. So I chose like 24 gauge needle with this. And then I spun these fibers at 7000 RPM for 10 minutes. I did a completely different study, like varying the speeds. I chose like 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So for this hydroxyapatite nanoparticle, 7000 was, it gives a better yield compared to the other speeds, and continuous and uniform fibers at 7000 RPM. So the first spinning was done at 7000 RPM for 10 minutes. So here you see this is the fiber web collected at the collector plates. And these fibers are collected using the popsicle stick. And then we cut these fibers at the edges so I can get the fibrous mats. So this is how we develop the polymer nanofibrous mats. So this is like a PCl hydroxyapatite fibrous mat obtained here. Excuse me. Before proceeding, like we go for the characterization of the PCl hydroxyapatite fibers before thermal and the mechanical testing to check like if the fibers were in good shape or not. So here I chose to show 4 samples. The first one is PCl without any hydroxyapatite. This is only like for the PCl fibers. And this is like the PCl fibers with 1 weight% of hydroxyapatite, and this is 2 weight% of hydroxyapatite, and the last one is like 3 weight% of hydroxyapatite. As we can see here, only PCl will give higher yield compared to the 1 weight%, 2 weight%, and 3 weight%. Also, the fibers are much smaller in diameter compared to the fibers infused with the nanoparticles. So here you can see that the neat fibers have the mean diameter of 1.65 micrometer, whereas the fibers infused with 1 weight% have 2.52 micrometers, and fibers infused with 2 weight% have 2.95 micrometer, and the fibers infused with 3 weight% have 4.12 micrometer. So when the filler percentages increases, the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles agglomerates, and also these particles come together and form like molecules. So as you can see here, the fibers bulges out at the center because of the agglomeration of these particles, and the fibers with the higher weight percentages are mostly disoriented and non-uniform. Like there, we observed very thick and very thin fibers for this. Also, I chose to show the fiber at higher magnification here so that we can see the infusement of the hydroxyapatite particles. As we can see here, the small particles over here, these are all the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles infused into the fibers. So we can say that when we infuse the nanoparticles into the polymer solution, the diameter of the fiber increases. However, if the filler percentages are going to be too high, the fibers are going to be non-uniform and disoriented. So after that, we checked for the thermal stability of the fibers by doing the DSC, so differential scanning calorimetry, using a TA series instrument. Here I've shown the glass transition temperature for these fibers. For the polycaprolactone fiber, the glass transition temperature is around -60 degrees. So that is very less, -60 degrees. In general, polymer, like for PCl, it is particularly very less compared to the PLA. So this is like -60 degrees for the neat PLA. But when we infuse these nanoparticles into the polymer solution, we can see that the glass transition temperature increased. So with 1 weight percent, it improved up to -54. With 2 weight percent, it moved up to -48. And with 3 weight percent, it moved up to -35. So definitely the infusing the nanoparticles will change the thermal properties of the material. And excuse me. So we chose to check the enthalpy from the melting endotherm here. So from the melting endotherm, I calculated the crystallinity of the fibers. So the crystallinity is calculated from the enthalpy of the melting endotherm to the fusion enthalpy of the neat PCl. So the crystallinity of the neat PCl fiber was like around 38, but with the nanoparticles, it moved up to 46, 63, and 45. So infusing the nanoparticles definitely improved the crystallinity of the fibers. However, a 2 weight percent has shown higher crystallinity compared to the 3 weight percent. This is because, as I discussed already for the characterization of the fibers, when the filler percentages increases, the particles agglomerate each other, and when these particles agglomerate, they create a molecular disorientation in the polymer nanofiber chains, and that creates defects in the structures. So that deteriorates the properties of the nanofibers. So as a result, we can see that the crystallinity decreased for the fibers with a 3 weight percent. And after that, we did a tensile test for the fibers. So this tensile test for the nanofibrous mats, like tensile test is not being mostly done for the nanofibrous mats because like these fibers are not properly oriented and it might not give consistent results. But what we have done is like we chose like a consistent method, and we tried to be accurate for everything we considered here, and we did the tensile test for these fibrous mats. So we followed ASTM D882 standards to do this tensile test. So this is the fibrous mat collected from the PCl hydroxyapatite fibers, and these mats were cut like the samples here. The width was like around 5 to 7 mm. It varied a little bit because like we are cutting them manually. And the length between the grips is like constant. It is like 20 mm. And the thickness of these fibers is measured using a micrometer, which has an accuracy of 0.001 mm. And we measured the thickness at 10 different places and took the average of the thickness of this mat. And we tested this fibrous mat using Zwick Royal Z2.5 universal mechanical testing machine, which is equipped with a load cell of 20 newtons. The minimum load it can measure is like 0.001 newtons. So we applied a preload of 0.01 newtons with a crosshead speed of 5 millimeter per minute. And these polycaprolactone fibers especially have a high stretchability. It exhibits like around 350% of strain. So that is the reason like we chose a threshold to stop the test, because like suppose if even a single fiber is there, the test is not going to stop. So that for that reason we chose a condition that when the force reaches the 80% of the F max, then the test should stop. So that was the condition we chose like to do this testing. That means like if maximum force is like 1 Newton, and if the force drops to 0.2 newtons, the test will stop automatically. So that is the condition we chose for this particular test. And this template is loaded here, and we cut this template so that the force from this paper will be removed. And this is loaded in this machine, and we perform the tensile testing on this particular on this nanofibrous mats. I chose to do like for 10 samples for each case, and I took 5 out of them and took 5 best out of them and averaged the results. So here for each test, like it took almost like 40 minutes. So I made a short video for the tensile testing. Yeah. So as we can see here, the section is like thinning up. These PCl fibers have like very high stretchability. See, even though it's a thin nanofibrous mat, it is like going along. So I chose to show only a part of the test because like I did not record the entire test. Yes. So the tensile test reports, test results were reported here. The bottom one is the neat fiber, which is shown here. And these are the curves with the infused hydroxyapatite nanoparticles. Definitely the results show that the injecting nanoparticles into the polymer solution have improved the mechanical strength of the nanofibers. However, like if we observe, for 2 weight percent, the Young's modulus and the tensile strength are very high compared to the neat fiber, 11.17 and 1.82, which is like almost 3 times that of the neat fiber. And for 1 weight percent, it is comparatively less than the 2 weight percent. And 3 weight percent is like very less compared to 1 and 2. That means when the crystallinity of the fibers decreases, I mean the molecular structure with the defects is present, then the mechanical strength of the fibers also decreases. So, however, these particles definitely increase the tensile strength of these fibers is definitely more than that of the neat fibers. So we can say that infusing the nanoparticles into the polymer PCl solution has increased the mechanical strength of the fibers. This is like for the tensile property or the Young's modulus, and these polymer nanofibers also have like very good viscoelastic properties. So in order to check the viscoelastic properties, we did a dynamic mechanical analysis of these fibers. So that was done using TAQ series 800 equipment. So for the testing of this particular nanofibrous mats, we chose to use the thin film clamp, which is under tensile mode, that we used under multi-frequency strain mode. So this is like the frequency sweep method. And we have to note that the melting point of the PCl is around between 55 to 60 degrees. So I did not vary the temperature here. So I did not do the DMA based on the temperature variation. So I chose to do the DMA based on the frequency variation. So where I changed frequency from 1 to 10 hertz, and then I did a multi-frequency strain mode with a frequency sweep method for the DMA. And the samples are, these are the tested samples. So the samples are made like cut into 40 by 5 mm. And I measured the width, thickness of these fibers at 10 different points and averaged the thickness of these samples. So the preload applied on these samples is like 0.01 newtons, which is consistent with the tensile test. And the constant strain of 1% is applied before doing this frequency sweep method. So as we can see, the storage modulus of the neat fibers is around 20 megapascals, but infusing the nanoparticles has increased this to 70. That means like it increased like up 3 times, similar to that of the tensile strength. Here also we can see that the hydroxyapatite with 2 weight percent has like higher storage modulus compared to that of 1 and 3. So the 3 has the least one compared to the 1, 2 and 3 weight percentages. However, like infusing the nanoparticles have definitely increased the storage modulus compared to the neat polymer. And the same goes for the loss modulus. So here also we see that for the 2 weight percent hydroxyapatite, the loss modulus is higher compared to the 1 and 3 weight percentages. So we can see that the infusing the nanoparticles into the polymer polycaprolactone solution has definitely increased the thermal stability of the fiber as well as the mechanical strength of the fiber. So coming to the conclusions, or summarizing this, the synthesized hydroxyapatite has a calcium to phosphorus ratio of 1.332 compared to the commercial one, which has like 1.56. And the nanomilling, which is employed to reduce the particle size, has definitely reduced the particle size to nanoscale. And the fiber diameter also increased with the increase in the filler percentages. And for the higher weight percentages, we see that the agglomeration happened inside the fibers, and the fiber diameters were extremely high compared to the 1 weight percent and 2 weight percent. And from the DSC results, we understood that the glass transition temperature has increased for fibers infused with the hydroxyapatite particles. However, the crystallinity for the 3-weight% for the fibers with the 3-weight% has reduced compared to the 2-weight% and 1-weight%. And infusing the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles into the polycaprolactone solution has definitely increased the mechanical strength in terms of the tensile, as well as the storage tensile strength and Young's modulus, storage modulus, and the loss modulus. So overall, we can say that infusing the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles have shown the better results for thermal and the mechanical properties compared to the neat fibers. And here I'm not able to show the biological test results here, but I heard that we have a positive test results like 1-weight%, 2-weight%, and 3-weight% has shown the increase in the cell growth compared to the neat fibers. So that's all for this project, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Deepa Kodali. It's an excellent session. And I want Professor Suresh Akella sir to interact with his student. Sir, are you available, sir? Yes, sir. Otherwise, Dr. K. Chandrasekhar, sir.
Hello.
Sir, please go ahead, sir.
Dr. Deepa.
Hello, sir. How are you, sir?
So, congratulations for having obtained your doctorate, and now you're doing postdoc in a very important area.
Yes, sir.
And we are very proud of you.
Thank you very much, sir.
When we saw you as a student in our MTech, there are students who are better than the teachers, and they are a challenge to the teachers. You have been one like that, and I hope you are continuing that dance. You should be better than all your teachers and contribute well to the society. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the blessings.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. K. Chandrasekhar, sir. Sir, are you there? Sir, are you?
Good. Hello, Deepa. Dr.
Please,
Deepa.
Please go ahead, sir.
Hello, sir.
Very happy to see you on this platform.
Thank you.
Really, we are all, as Suresh Akella sir said, we're all proud of you. So really, so nice presentation by you in the advanced area of nanofibers. Very good. And one doubt, Deepa, why 2% nanofibers are having high storage modulus? What might be the reason?
2% for storage modulus. The crystallinity increases with the 2-weight%, sir. I mean, like if we go on increasing the filler percentages, the agglomeration happens inside the particles, which results in the defects of the fibers. So that is the reason, like moderate filler percentages will give a very good thermal and mechanical. Not only this, like if we observe all the studies, so moderate filler percentages will give very good results compared to the neat fibers, compared to very high filler percentages also. So if we go on increasing the filler percentages, it causes defects in the structures. The molecular orientation will be disoriented inside the polymer chains.
Okay. Anyway, it's nice presentation, Deepa. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now I request Radhika madam to present few questions raised by the participants. Madam.
Sir, Deepa, here are some questions from the participants. First one is,
Yes.
what type of test was done to find the stability of nanoparticle? What type of test was done to find the stability of nanoparticle? It was asked by Jiva.
So I didn't get, what do you mean by stability of the nanoparticles? I mean, like we are considering the size of the nanoparticles here. So we definitely know that hydroxyapatite has a good osteoconductivity, and it is like non-immunogenic, and it is used for the biomedical applications. So we are more focusing on synthesizing the particles in a nanoscale. So also like we are focusing on the chemical or the elemental composition of the hydroxyapatite, which we synthesized from the raw fish scales. So that is the reason we chose to do the SEM or the scanning electron microscopy, TEM, and the to check the size of the particles and the chemical composition.
So one more question from Jiva only. Whether thermal conductivity measurements of HA fiber was executed, whether nanofilm formation was observed during the research work.
Can you please repeat that again? Your voice was breaking.
Whether thermal conductivity measurements of HA fiber was executed, whether nanofilm formation was observed during the research work.
No, we did not check for extremely like thermal conductivity, because like, as I said, the polycaproelectron has like a low melting point of 55 to 60 degrees centigrade. So that is the reason I chose to do the mechanical testing as well as the other testing like within the room temperature, because like it might melt the polymer nanofibers. However, when we did the DSC, like differential scanning calorimetry, I ran that test from negative 80 degrees to 80 degrees centigrade, and I did twice, heat, cool, heat cycle. So we saw that the melting, we saw that from the results of the DSC, that the enthalpy of the melting endotherm has increased while infusing the nanoparticles.
Another question. Name of any equipment or test for measurement of contact angle.
Contact angle?
Contact angle.
Yes, actually that is the part of the next project. We wanted to do the contact angle test and the wettability test, and then the plasma treatment also for the polymer nanofibers, which shows very good cell growth. So that will be included in the next part of the project.
Another question. What is the typical range for strain rates for polymer nanofibers with force spinning method?
Strain rates?
What is the typical range for strain rates for polymer nanofibers with force spinning method?
There is no particular strain rate. However, we choose to change the angular velocity depending on the fibers. Like if we see, like when we collect the fibers, we can see if they are beaded or if they are uniform or if they are not uniform, if they are very fragile, and how was the yields. So based on these factors, we decide which one is good and which angular velocity was good. So we do not choose any particular strain rate for the force spinning, because it works on the centrifugal forces. So the angular velocity plays an important role for the centrifugal force and not the strain rate.
Whether the tensile testing machine is indigenously developed or the setup is already available.
So this load cell was like customized for the low loads. Like, so we for the Zwick Royal, earlier we used to have 20 kilonewton load cell, but now like we customize this load cell to 20 newtons, so it can measure like 0.001 newtons. So we specifically asked this particular industry to develop this load cell to measure this. I mean, to check the fibers. We check like the human hair, the fibers, single filament fibers, and everything with this.
Why the true strain response not observed?
Yes, that's a good question. However, like tensile testing of fibers itself is like not very consistent. As we see, like the tensile testing depends on the orientation of the fibers. These fibers are just collected from the force spinning equipment. So they might be randomly oriented. They are not perfectly aligned. So the orientation of the fibers also play an important role in the tensile testing, which we neglect here. We are not considering the orientation of the fibers here. We are thinking that okay, they are perfectly, we are assuming that they are okay, perfectly aligned. So that is the reason, like that itself is like not very consistent. So we generally choose with the standard method rather than going through stress strain. Also, the thickness of the fibers is like few millimeters. It is like, see, when I tested, it was like 0.7 millimeters, 0.5 millimeters thick, 0.4 millimeters thick. So for that area of cross section, if we choose to go with true stress and true strain, the response might be very inconsistent. So that is the reason we chose to go with the standard method, and we did not check for the true stress strain response.
Can you suggest any good material to understand SEM XRD analysis for metal matrix composites?
Can you please come again?
Can you suggest any good material to understand SEM XRD analysis for metal matrix composites?
Metal matrix composites, it definitely like it is like trial and error method. So you should try with different materials, and then you will get to know what all the things are affecting your elemental composition or the characteristics. So it is like always like experience will gain the results. That's it.
Hello. Whether
Yes.
Mr. Jiva is available in this meeting? Mr. Jiva.
Yes, sir. I'm available, sir.
Yeah, please get clarification from resource person.
Deepa madam, I just wanted to ask you, like, you have done the thermal stability test. The stability test generally will do the drop test. We take the nanoparticle in a centrifuge tube, and you drop that nanoparticle, and what is the time that it will agglomerate. That particular time we have to find. That is generally done for a stability test. We've also done the thermal stability test. I hope you have done the thermal stability test with the DAC.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. I understood what you meant by stability. Yeah, that's a good question then. Okay. So this hydroxyapatite particularly has a tendency like to agglomerate itself very soon. It absorbs the moisture itself very soon. I tried with 2 minutes in the thinking mixer, like planetary mixing of the nanoparticles for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I try to vary the time while mixing it. However, like for higher weight percentages, these particles once mixed, like they get deposited at the bottom of the solution and they agglomerate here, agglomerate. So again, like we need to mix it to inject the solution to generate the polymer nanofibers. So that is what I meant by agglomeration of the particles. Even for 1 weight percent and 2 weight percent also, if we leave it for longer time, they still get agglomerated at the bottom of the solution. However, for when we increase the filler percentages, it happens so quickly. I mean, like I should take out the solution from the thinking mixer or the planetary mixer, and then I should inject the solution into the spinneret. Even in that time, these particles get agglomerated. So within less than few minutes, like 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So that is that happened like with the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles particularly, because like this has a particular tendency to agglomerate itself. Even like if I crush it once, and then if I leave it for a while, it gets agglomerated after some time by itself. So I have tested those things, but particularly I did not do any thermal stability, stability testing to find the time for the agglomeration of these nanoparticles, because like we are not focusing on that. We are trying to find out, okay, if we infuse the hydroxyapatite nanoparticles, is it promoting the cell growth or not? And is it improving the thermal and mechanical properties or not? So that is our main focus.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, okay. Yeah, please, sir, please.
Venkata Udayavaskar, sir. Hello. Hello. Venkata Udayavaskar, sir. Okay, I think sir is not available. Manda Chandrasekhar, sir. Chandrasekhar, sir, can you unmute yourself? Okay. So you have raised some doubt. You have raised your hand. Do you have any question for madam? Hello. Chandrasekhar, sir. Hello. Okay, madam, there is no response from their end. They have raised their hand, but there is no response from their end. Okay. So Leela Prasad, sir.
Good, Dr. Deepa. So the whole session went very well. I thank you on behalf of the department as well as our college, and we are so happy for the progress you have made in your field. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, sir. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's very good to see you all who are my professors, so my colleagues, and it's very good, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the participants, a small announcement. There was some technical issue from our side. That's why today we were unable to live stream on YouTube. As soon as this particular session is over, we will share the video, PPTs, and feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.